Fitri dari Fkip Uia, and also Ibu Dewi from Riau, Kepulauan Batam, ada Ibu Dina. Oh, ini Ibu Dina Irmayanti. Terima kasih Ibu Dina sudah hadir. Baik, Ibu Dina dari Medan, ya. And also Mbak Yuseva, our speakers. Thank you Mbak Yuseva. And also ada Ulfatul Munawaroh dari Trunojoyo, Madura. Okay, nice to meet you too. Ada Putri Maulidina, Cica Ayu, and also the others. Thank you Bapak Ibu for joining this event in this morning. Yeah, thank you also for the students and also lecturer from Unsil. Yeah, there are so many participants from Unsil. Okay, Pak Rector is already joined this meeting, so the Master of Ceremony will begin this event. Please.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be Master of Ceremony today's occasion. I'm Trisetianingsi on behalf of the committee. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you. We appreciate you for taking your time of your busy schedule to join us today. So, welcome to the international webinar, Distance Learning in Language Teaching, Trends, Challenge, and Opportunities, held by English Education Study Program, Faculty of Teaching and Educational Science, Universitas Islam Fkip Uia. To begin this program, we would like to invite Dr. Masduki Ahmad MH as Director of Asafia Islamic University to deliver his speech and officially open the event. For Dr. Masduki Ahmad.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, Excellency Ms. Yuseva and Mr. Timothy Barsak, as to invite speakers, respectable all of the lecture of English department, and the last honorable of participants of this webinar. First of all, let's pray and thanks into our God, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, who has been giving us some mercies and blessing. So we can attend and gather in this virtual meeting in good condition and happy situation. Secondly, my peace and solution always be given to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who has guided us from the darkness to the brightness, from stupidity to the elephants, from Jahiliyah to the Islamic era. Third, I don't forget to say thank you very much to the Master of Ceremony who has given me time to speak in front of you all. Standing in front of you all, I would like to deliver my speech under the title is Distance Learning in Language Teaching, Trends, Challenges, and Opportunity. Pandemic that has been running for more than a year encouraged us to interrupt all activities, including in the field of education. Various problems in distance learning also arise from internet connection problem, to the Directorate Children in Learning. There need to be solve this series of student research expo activities had annual and is currently the 6 years of the event. Student Research Expo is the final project of course design course. The purpose of the Student Research Expo in to train English language education study and semester 6 to carry out mini research as a prevention to prepare the latter. The product of this activity is scientific article that have been published in various proceedings and journal, but of national and international scale. In 2021, there are 4 guest speakers from various countries, including Yuseva, Ariyani, Iswandari from Sanata Dharma University, Yogyakarta, Timothy Barsaks from the Ohio State University, Ferdus Bradbury, Bisa University of Saudi Arabia, and Robert Echard, Yangtze University and Guangxi Normal University. Which this activity is expected to further culture of researching in student of the English language education, study from especially and all Universitas Islam Asafiyah academic in general. Finally, by reciting Basmalah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I officially open the event, enjoy the event. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, we would like to invite the honorable speaker and moderator, Yuseva Ariyani Iswandari and Nurul Hasanah Fajaria. The golden time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tia, for the opening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Praise be to Allah who has been giving us some mercies and blessing, so we can attend and gather in this virtual meeting with the topic Distance Learning in Language Teaching, Trends, Challenges, and Opportunities, held by English Education Study Program, Faculty of Teaching and Educational Sciences, Asyafi'iyah Islamic University. Thank you, Bapak Dr. Masduki Ahmad MH, for the opening speech. Welcome to the participant and invited speaker who has been pleased to be present in this marvelous moment. As we know, that pandemic that has been running for more than a year encourages us to interrupt all activities, including in the field of education. Various problems in distance learning also arise, from internet connection problems to decreased motivation of students in learning. There needs to be effort from various parties to contribute to solve the problem. Thus, our discussion today will focus on trends, challenges, and opportunities of distance learning in language teaching. To liven up our discussion this morning, we already invite our beloved speaker, Ms. Yuseva Ariyani Iswandari, MED. Okay, and also to facilitate the presentation activities, I, Nurul Hasanah, will try to host the event until it is finished. To make our discussion run smoothly, the speaker will be invited to present her paper until it is finished. For all participants, please turn off your speaker during the presentation. For question and answer session will begin after the presentation is finished. Please write your question through chat room by mentioning your name, affiliation, and your question. Our speaker today is Ms. Yuseva Ariyani Iswandari, MED. Okay, good morning, Ms. Yuseva. How is your life today?
Good morning, Ms. Nurul. Life is good here. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. Where are you right now? In Indonesia or in US?
I'm next to Miss Tia in
see.
Ohio. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
we're neighbors just next door.
Okay. What time is it right now, Miss Yuseva?
9:30 p.m.
Oh, 9:30 p.m. Okay, so I should say good evening then, yeah?
It's okay. It's always morning for me.
Okay, thank you. I hope that you are okay there, yeah. Okay, then, Bapak Ibu, I will read her personal profile. Yuseva Ariyani Iswandari MED. She is a lecturer in the English Education Study Program at Sanata Dharma University, Yogyakarta. She obtained her bachelor degree in English Language Education at Sanata Dharma University. She obtained her master degree in Curriculum and Instructional at Arizona University under Fulbright Scholarship. She is currently taking doctoral degree program in Foreign Second Multilingual Language Education at the Ohio State University under Dicty-funded Fulbright Scholarship. Her research interests are teacher professional development, extensive reading, and reading-writing connection. She is an active member of ERA and Extensive Reading Foundation Executive Board of Director. Okay, I invite Ms. Yuseva to present her paper, please.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nurul. Good morning, Bapak Ibu dosen, para mahasiswa, and all participants in this international webinar. How are you? Apa kabar hari-hari ini? Sehat ya? I hope everyone is healthy and also happy. Thank you, Universitas Islam Asyafiah, for this great opportunity to share and learn together. And I would like to address my gratitude to Dr. Marzuki Ahmad as Director, Bapak Dr. Andes Ari Sumitro as the Dean of Faculty of Teaching and Educational Science, Ms. Nurul Hasanah Fajaria MPD as the Head of English Education Study Program, and also Bapak Hanafi Wibowo MPD as the Vice Chair. Okay, so my name is Yuseva, and I'm from Universitas Sanata Dharma, Yogyakarta. And Ms. Tia told me that I will be a single fighter today, right? Okay, so let's get started then. So today I would like to talk about social connectedness in distant learning through reading and book talk. Would you please continue to the next slide? I'm sorry because I asked the committee to share the screen because I'm afraid that my laptop will, sometimes will freeze. All right, so I would like to start by sharing what some teachers I've talked to, virtually of course, say about distance learning that they've been experiencing since the pandemic started. So a teacher from Sumatra here says, I'm emotionally exhausted from preparing materials alone and dealing with students' performance and low learning motivation in distance learning. However, this situation has challenged me to be more creative in using technology for my teaching. Another teacher from Banten also shows optimism actually by saying, I tried to see this pandemic from a new perspective about life. Optimism. I could explore all possibilities of using technology to facilitate my teaching. I prioritize fun learning experience and student-centered. However, a teacher from East Nusa Tenggara stated that she is shocked and frustrated actually until now because of the feeling of isolation and not confident in her teaching. One teacher from Kalimantan misses the previous in-person learning mode, but she shows that she has moved on by exploring all the possibilities of using technology. Next. And one lecturer from Jakarta clearly stated that COVID-19 has positively affected his life and mentions that both he and his students can survive during the pandemic. Next. Well, so I believe that teachers out there, including Bapak Ibu, some will still experience a lot of challenges in distance learning, and some others have tried to move on and focus on how to adapt with the situation and learn how to use technology fast, which is great. And I'm so proud of what teachers have done. in the sudden and unexpected situation to make learning still happen. However, I would like to put a simple reminder that whatever we, teachers, try our best to make learning still happen, we need to consider students' condition. Good learning materials are important. Meeting the learning target is also important, but students' mental health is also important. Please, next slide. Okay, so from some students that I've talked to, the dominant emotion that they feel is isolated. For example, a student from Yogyakarta said that I miss having direct discussions, listening to direct explanations from the teachers. Distant learning really influences me. I easily feel bored and stressful. I cried several times when doing my assignment because I cannot communicate and discuss with my friends. I feel isolated. Another student said, I experience anxiety and I lose my motivation. I'm anxious. Sorry, I was muted, I think. Okay, so I cannot follow the lesson well. I'm anxious because of the internet connection. I'm anxious because I cannot meet my friends. I'm anxious because I have to stay in my room all the time with no friends, feeling lonely. It really makes me frustrated because my mom is that's what she said. And I believe that some of the students here also experience similar thing, yeah? And another student from Kalimantan also say, I really miss in-person classes. Distant learning makes me feel distant and isolated because I only face screen all the time. My time to meet and talk to others is decreasing because of the pandemic. So I believe that some of you also experience similar thing. If you think that you have similar experience with what the teachers or the students share here that I write down in my PowerPoint, you can also write down in the chat, or you can say like, I experienced the same thing. I'm glad I'm not alone. So you can write whatever you want and to express your feeling also in the chat, please. Okay, so would you please continue with the next slide? So yeah, however, it is absolutely not the teacher's fault. I think if students feel that way because we all know the challenges of distance learning. Well, actually, it is ironic, right? That the technology helps us maintain our connection with people far away, but in the context of distant learning, isolation is still felt. So basically, isolated everything. Isolated learners, isolated teachers, isolated materials, isolated interactions, etc. So students learn from home and they cannot, meet their friends. That's also similar with the teachers. They cannot really discuss teaching materials with other teachers. And materials also tend to be designed for individual access and minimize collaborative group works like group presentation, which results in isolated interaction. Less and less interaction between students occur due to the internet access. Classes are not able to be conducted synchronously all the time. Wilkinson et al. State that social isolation arising from a lack of meaningful connection with others can result in deterioration of well-being and mental health. And according to Baker, in a recent survey, over 80% of college students reported that remote learning due to COVID-19 has impacted their lives through increased isolation, loneliness, stress, and sadness. Furthermore, data from activeminds.org mentioned that 8 in 10 students are struggling with focus on school and avoiding distractions during remote learning. Well, I totally agree with this because I myself as a student right now, struggle to avoid distraction of, the kitchen and rebahan, and focus on work, like assignment and also other work. So my own belief as a teacher is that mental health of my students is as important as their academic success. So I always try to pay attention to it. Next, please. So therefore, especially in this pandemic, where learning is shifted into distance or remote learning, we call it, it is important to make sure that students are still socially connected. So what is social connectedness? Dates 2020 state that social connectedness is related to the relation one creates with his or her community and environment, and the support he or she receives in return. So social connectedness embodies feeling connected and close to others, community, and environment. Some benefits of being socially connected are like, reducing anxiety, regulating emotions, and increasing empathy, which is, which basically indicators of mental health. Next, please. So social connectedness in this distant learning is of course challenging, but I think it's possible. So I would like to share how to maintain social or student social connection through reading and book talk. Why reading and book talk? Mark Haydn says that reading is a conversation. All books talk, but a good book listens as well. Next, please. So according to Gori 2020, reading books and then talking about them, whether online or in person actually, can teach us about ourselves, enhance our social interaction, increase empathy, and develop cultural understanding. Dresser 2013 states that reading and having conversation about the books help students connect with their learning environments and enhance their social emotional learning. Books help the students to be able to share and express what they feel through the help of the stories. Next, please. So I'm going to share what I have done with my students. I implemented extensive reading approach. In a simple way, extensive reading is self-selected readings extensively and for pleasure, not for pressure, yeah? Okay, so if you want to know more about extensive reading, you can visit Extensive Reading Foundation website. So my students and I read books, fictions, non-fictions, that they choose, or sometimes we choose one book that we all want to read. So what kind of English books? I let my students decide actually, as long as it's fun to read, because the idea here is not assessing their English ability, but simply enjoy reading and enjoy the story. So before the pandemics, my students are able to borrow books from the reading corner that we had, and they could also read their own collections. But what if distance or remote learning? I believe that now more and more online reading websites are accessible and very reliable. And I believe that Bapak Ibu already know some of the sources. Next, please. I put some of free good websites that you can visit. They provide good English books. Some of them are graded readers. Some of them are, fiction, non-fiction books. But just remind students to use the internet and select the readings wisely. Okay, next please. And I would like to share some ideas of doing book talk. The first one is having book conversation through literature circle. So before the pandemic, it's easier actually for me and the students to, sit down and talk. We use dice with some guiding questions. We answered questions, responded, and then sometimes, laughed, smiled, and sometimes we cried together for some touching stories or sharing. I think if you decide to do it now, you can still use online application like WordWall. I'm going to show you later if we still have time. So basically you just move the questions in the WordWall and do virtual literature circle. I believe Bapak Ibu also already use those kinds of applications. So if you see here, the questions are not related to comprehensions actually, more on like questions that facilitate students to share and express their feelings and make connections to their lives, such as, why do you choose the book? What does this book remind you of? Or which part of the story that you like the most? So during the conversation, my students may choose to use any languages that they are comfortable with, because the focus is on making them talk actually and share, not on assessing their English. Next, please. Okay, so for example, I'm recently reading this book, You Matter. If, for example, I have to answer which part of the story do you like the most, I would choose this part, the poem by Emerson entitled What Will Matter. Maybe I need one volunteer to read the first part, like the second picture, if you can see that, the second picture, and just read part of the poem. Anyone? Any volunteer?
Maybe me.
Sure, Miss Nurul, that would be great. Just the part of it. Thank you, though.
What will
the
matter?
second picture? Yeah, what will matter?
What will matter? Okay. Actually, I cannot read a poem. How to read a poem?
I'm sure you can do it.
Okay, I will try. Okay. What will matter? Ready or not, someday it will all come to an end. There will be no sunrise, no minutes, hours, or day. All the things you collected, whether treasure or forgotten, will pass to someone else. Your wealth, fame, and temporal power will shrink into irrelevance. It will not matter what you own or what you were owned. Your grudge, resentment, frustration, and jealousies will finally disappear. So too, your hopes, ambition, plans, and to-do list will expire. Aduh, so sad ya Mbak ya.
Thank you, Miss Nurul. Thank you. Okay, so for the participants and also Miss Nurul, if you want to express what you feel or how you make connection with the part of the poem that Miss Nurul has just read, please write down in the chat. You're allowed to do that. Okay. So yeah, while waiting for those who want to write down in the chat, I will just continue. So why I choose this part? I believe that many of you can associate with the part of the poem in this current situation, right? Okay, so my personal reason is that it's because not so long ago, I experienced anxiety myself, thinking about the COVID cases in Indonesia, and I'm worried about my mother because, as you know, I'm far from her. I'm here in the United States, and my mom is in Yogyakarta. So this part also helped me actually to reflect on what actually mattered to me in this current situation or in the current time, because many people say that there are so many uncertainties, right? Okay, so that can be an example. Then I believe that more questions like what happened to my mother, or maybe questions like, so what matters the most for you, Yuseva? Those kind of questions and some responses that strengthen me would appear. So conversation happens and we are connected. Okay, the next part, please. The next slide. Thank you. So what about, maybe some of you will have questions. What about students who are introvert or who do not really like to talk or who do not feel comfortable to talk? You can also try to have written book talk. If you have learning management system, you can make the best use of it. Students can post their responses or reactions and everyone else would respond. So this is the example of what I did with my students using the LMS from my university. Next, please. Okay, so here is another example that I have done with my students. We had a book talk through a letter to the author. So after reading the book Egghead, so at that time I used Egghead, so it's a true story of bullying and friendship. I asked the students to write a letter to Michael. So Michael is actually the character, but also the author. Any volunteer to read the letter? Maybe the handwriting is not really clear, but I'm sure you can try to read it. So any volunteer to read the letter?
Can I?
Sure, sure. That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, let's start. Dear sir, your story about Egghead is familiar to my life. At first, my friends at school also called me names. School became unenjoyable. I just kept walking through those frustrating days. In the end, for some reasons which are no one ever for me, I felt comfortable being called by these names. I wonder if the story Egghead represents your life because your name and Egghead names is the same. If it does represents your life, then I would like to ask some advisors so that I can also share my experience with others by a nice way so that they could understand my feelings.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Okay, so here the story works as a bridge actually to connect with the students' personal experience and feelings, and they share it to others. So I was lucky at that time because I know the author and I could reach out to him. So I sent the letters to him. I asked the students to have handwriting actually, and he responded to each of my students' letters. But you know, even if you cannot reach out to the author, you can just ask the students to write an email for now, because we have remote learning, you know, pretending for the author, and then some other students can respond. So basically, you can ask your students to send email each other, and then pretending to be the author, and then they will respond to the questions addressed by the other students. Next, please. Okay, so here is another example of the letter. I'm not sure if I have time, or I will just move on to the next slide. So
that's okay. This session is
That's
fully
great.
yours.
Okay, till drop, yeah, Miss Nurul, yeah.
Yes, till drop.
All right. Okay, so maybe I need another person to read the next letter. Any volunteer? Anyone? So the idea here is don't think about your English. Don't think about your pronunciation. What is important is just read the letter and try to understand it, or maybe try to feel, some part of the letter. So anyone? Any volunteer? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Okay. So I mean, like they still think about grammar, but that's okay. Yeah. Okay. So if from the letter, actually, you can see that the way the students write it, they try to make connection with their personal experience, but at the same time, actually, they also show their empathy, and also they try to put themselves in the author's shoes or the character's shoes, right? So again, why books? Because books can talk and also can listen, right? Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, another activity that you can do actually is making reading writing connection, especially if you think that your students do not really like to talk. So to balance that, actually, instead of forcing them to speak, you can make reading writing connection, talking through poems. So my colleague in Sanata Dharma did it in her creative writing class, and I thought it's pretty cool that I have to share it to you. So she invited her students to read and then create a poem related to the story and connect that with what they feel during the pandemic. And then they post it in their class Instagram, they share it publicly, and then they had further conversation. So if you see here, through writing, the students try to tell other people about what they feel and experience. So maybe any volunteer to read the poem entitled My Anxiety? Anyone?
Me?
Me?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. My anxiety. Okay. Yeah. My anxiety from Oceania. I was strong girl, independent, not scared with anything, fearless. But everything crashes down and takes out. All my life, I wanted to die, but I can't. I say I'm okay, but it is a lie. Can you stop holding my soul? You hold me too tight. Please, I'm struggle to breathe free.
Thank you so much. See, what can you see from the poem? Like the student tries to say something. The student tries to tell you something, right? So I think it's a very good way to know students' feeling as well. Like we can make the best use of our English learning actually to also understand our students. Let them really express and share their feeling. The next poem. Any volunteer?
May I?
Sure. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's 2020. This year, I only failed 2 months and 30 days. The days I forgot. All I remember in the cell phone screen. It only took 2 weeks, they said. But it's been 7 months and 16 days. This virus, only one, but everywhere. I hope it's getting tired for going so far. I'm like a bird in a cage. Innovation, but impression at home, but not at home, but not home. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Very deep, right? So it really expresses what they feel during the pandemic. So then, like that's why it is very important for teachers to really understand the students' feeling. As I said before, the learning target is important, academic success is important, but if the students experience like mental health, breakdown, and they're not really happy, then I believe that they cannot really learn successfully. So then when they felt socially connected in their community, in this case, creative writing class, and therefore they can openly communicate their feelings and emotions, you know. So I think this is good to help them maintain their mental health through reading, through books, and through telling stories. When they, you know, when they can make an connection between books and their personal experience, I believe that they will, you know, they will be brave to share what they feel, what they experience. Next, please. The next slide. Thank you. So what the students have learned actually. So first, book talk can be a good way to connect students. It minimizes the feeling of isolation. Second, students give and receive supports through the book conversation. They are more aware of their personal and other struggle during challenging time, and the support can strengthen their social emotions and also connections, which help them face life challenges better. And third, through the story and the character's experience, students are able to share their feeling and what they have been through. And students become more reflective and less anxious, knowing that they are not alone. Like others, can be other students, even characters in books, they have similar experience. That's why they think that they are not alone. And finally, through reading books and talk about them, students actually learn and improve their English together. Next, please. Okay, and matters greatly. So it is important to consider maintaining students' social connections when developing materials and planning the teaching learning activities. It's humanizing learning, Bapak Ibu, ya. Memanusiakan pembelajaran, if I may say. And second, social connection facilitates meaningful ways to give and receive support and foster their social emotional learning. Students with better social emotional connection are willing to engage in the classroom, I think, both academically and emotionally. Next, please. And these are the references that I have. And next, please. I think the next slide is thank you. Ms. Nurul, I think that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yuseva, for your sharing. It's very impressive, yeah. As what you say, that our most problem is feeling isolated, yeah, feeling isolated, and then anxiety, lonely, stressful. It's not only from teacher, but also to the students, yeah. When the students thinks that I'm very stressful, actually the teacher is also feel the same, yeah, okay. So we need connectedness, maybe because we are human and we are a social creature. Okay, and it's very nice quote that reading is a conversation. Yeah, I just realized about that reading is a conversation. All book talks, but a good book listen as well. Okay, and also some ideas of book talks are literature circle and written book talk author a letter to the author, and also reading writing connection, like talking to poems. Okay, thank you, Ms. Yuseva. Okay, Bapak Ibu and all participants, now is the time for question and answer session. I will read the first question in the chat room. Bapak Ibu, you can start to write your question. The first question is from Sinta or Octavia. The question is, what are the biggest challenges a teacher face in the classroom? Okay, maybe Mbak Yuseva, you can directly answer the question, please.
Okay, thank you. So I believe that the question is related to what is the biggest challenge for teachers in online, right? In online or distance learning, right? Or is it like classroom in general, or is it online learning?
Seems that it is online learning, yeah.
Online
because
learning,
yeah,
right.
in Indonesia is everything's doing online.
Right. I also actually experienced online learning. So I think the biggest challenge for teachers, I think it becomes like teaching profession becomes 24/7. Do you agree with me, Bapak Ibu? Right? Because basically you bring your work in your house, right? And then, you know, preparing for the materials, not only photocopying material, you have to create a very creative, interactive materials in such a way that the students will be more interested in joining your class, right? That is for the teacher, I think the biggest challenge. For the students, the biggest challenge actually is internet connection. Because I believe that students still have big motivation actually to learn, right? But then because of the internet connection, that really influences the students' motivation. I did an observation in a class for my research, and then I could see that actually they are very enthusiastic in joining the class. And then when the teacher asks questions, they want to answer, but then they have problem with the internet connection. It's breakdown. And so their voice cannot be heard, they cannot turn on the camera, and they become demotivated. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And I believe that Bapak Ibu and para mahasiswa also experience that. It's very stressful actually, right? So for EFL learners, wow, this is a very interesting question. How do you deal with online learning for the first time? To be honest, I'm a gaptek person, okay? I like, you know, using traditional method in teaching because my focus actually is interacting with the students, being so close with the students. So I seldom use technology when I was teaching, but then suddenly I have to adapt with the use of technology. How do I deal with it? To be honest, I was frustrated in the beginning of the pandemic, just like you all, and I think it's human. If I may share what I experienced here when I'm a student, as a student here. So when the pandemic happened and the class shift into remote learning, we were given 2 weeks to simply understand what's going on, to simply understand what happened. So in the 2 weeks, all professors didn't give us any assignments and we didn't have to join the class. So they just asked us to simply understand what's going on. So that, and every day, like their emails keep coming, like asking about our condition, checking in, and then offer helps if we need helps from them. And then if we need to talk to them, so they offer helps. So those what happened in the first 2 weeks here. And then after that, like the professors tried to reduce the load of the assignments, let's say from 4 essays into 2 or 3 essays. And basically they said that just try to do it, but if you, let's say, if you cannot really finish in the deadline time, then that's okay. What is important is just communicate with the teachers. So things like that. So that's how I deal with the beginning of the pandemic. I was lucky because I think my environment understand what happened, and then they also offer communication and connection. So yeah, I think that is what is important especially for the students, and also for the teachers, because I believe that the teachers also didn't really know what's going on, right? Everybody, like even the teachers, they are parents, and parents also need to understand their children, like their children's feeling. So yeah, I think if you ask me what I would do on the first or the beginning of the pandemic, I would just slow down, and I would also ask my students to slow down. As I said, academic success is very important, but I think mental health is also important. So that's what I think. Thank you.
I do agree with you that mental health will more important today, and seems that tomorrow Timothy will discuss about that. Yeah,
that's great.
Okay, the next question is from Dela. I'd like to ask this question: how to make the students comfort and effective with the online learning? Because that's what I feel. It's really hard to have teaching learning online. Yeah.
Okay. How to make students feel comfortable?
Yes.
And then what was
to
it?
Make comfortable and effective. How to make the students comfort and effective? Yes.
Okay. Now, before I answer the questions, I would like to invite Bapak Ibu dosen or Bapak Ibu guru who join this discussion. Maybe some of you want to share your idea or maybe your best practices or maybe your experience on how to make the students feel comfortable in your classroom. Please share, because I believe that the participants here, Bapak Ibu dosen and Bapak Ibu guru, they have good best practices also to share. Bapak Ibu dosen, Bapak Ibu guru, silahkan.
Bapak Ibu, you can raise your hand if you want to share your best practice, your experience, please. You can raise your hand.
Right.
Or you can directly unmute the speaker, please.
Yeah, please do. I believe you also have a lot to share. Ada Bapak Ibu dosen, Bapak Ibu guru? Tadi saya lihat ada loh Bapak Ibu guru, ada yang dari MTS, and ya kan yang Miss Nurul ya, ada yang dari, kita di sini sharing ya, bagus kalau bisa sharing, karena saya juga bisa belajar dari yang lain juga, Silakan Bapak Ibu.
In bahasa nggak apa-apa mungkin Mbak Yuseva ya, maybe.
Iya, dalam bahasa Indonesia juga nggak apa-apa. We are sharing, right? Silakan Bapak Ibu. Pakai bahasa Indonesia nggak apa-apa, pakai bahasa daerah nggak apa-apa. Silakan. Miss Tia mungkin. Ada Bapak Ibu?
Bapak Ibu.
Silakan. How to make students feel comfortable? Well, this is actually a tough question, I would say. How to make students feel comfortable? There are a lot to consider. Miss Nurul, ini tadi yang bertanya guru atau siswa ya? Kalau boleh
Mahasiswa.
tahu.
Mahasiswa.
Oh, oke. Calon guru ya. Bagaimana cara membuat siswa nyaman dalam pembelajaran ya? Oke, nah ini mungkin pengen tahu supaya nanti ketika praktek mengajar jadi tahu ya, how to make students feel comfortable. For me, based on my personal experience, I would just focus on the process, because for me learning is a process. I mean, you cannot expect your students to learn simple present tense in one semester and they do not make mistakes. So then for me, how to make students feel comfortable is try to walk with them in the process. It's okay to make mistakes, right? Because learning is a process. So that's what I do with my students. I focus more on the process than the product, because actually the product can be improved all the time until they graduate, until you become teachers, until you continue your study. So it's a process. Learning is a process. So and so I think like both in in-person and online classrooms, what I emphasize is that I focus on the process than the product. So when, you know, when the students feel that they are valued, their process is valued, then they will, believe me, they will voluntarily learn, not only from your class, but also try to learn from outside of your class and then bring what they've learned into your class. So I think that's the very simple thing that I can think, and that based on my personal experience, like how to make the students comfortable. So I think that's it, Ms. Nurul. I hope I answered the questions.
Yeah, maybe before the pandemic, we are accustomed to push the students to finish the curriculum. Yeah, not to enjoy the process. Yeah,
right.
So we cannot do that in this period. Yeah, jadi
let
it flow gitu.
Right. I mean, like even in moreover in this era, in this online learning, that's why there are so many webinars, like good webinars from friends from ITEL. Also, they are helping teachers to learn how to use technology for education, and they also like try to promote humanizing education or humanizing technology. So basically, it goes back to humanizing everything, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think as Ms. Nurul said before, and I totally agree with her, like no need to force menyelesaikan target pembelajaran ya. Jadi yang namanya kurikulum atau target pembelajaran sebaiknya dilihat lagi. Jika bisa diselesaikan baik, tapi sebaiknya diingat, when you try to finish that, it means that kesehatan mental mahasiswa atau siswa itu juga diperhatikan. Ya.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yuseva. I'm actually very curious about the extensive reading. Yeah, as we know that, especially my own students. Yeah, I don't think that they like reading. What's that? They have habit to read a book, moreover in English. Okay, so when I want to apply a literature circle, which one is better? Is it what's that? Suggest them to read English book, or okay, you can read bahasa Indonesia book as long as the process is similar with like what you did. What do you think about that?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nurul. This is a very good question. It depends. It depends who your students are actually, right? If your students are pendidikan bahasa Inggris, of course, then I think it's better for you to use buku-buku bacaan bahasa Inggris, because actually you also want them to learn the language, right? But if they are students of non-English department, of course they can use buku-buku berbahasa lain. So again, it depends on who your students are. So when you say that your students do not like or do not have a reading habit or do not like reading, I remember James Peterson said, actually, tidak ada anak yang tidak suka membaca. Hanya ada dua tipe anak. One, those who love reading, and the other ones actually are those who read the wrong book. Ya enggak? Benar nggak para mahasiswa? Ya kan? Jadi nggak suka baca karena disuruh baca itu ya, bacaan buku tentang metode penelitian. Tidur semua nanti kan? Nah, sebenarnya mereka nggak suka baca because they read the wrong book. So, Ms. Nurul, maybe you can start by asking them to read any books, any English books that are of their interest, mungkin sesuai dengan minat mereka, entah itu genre-nya atau ketebalannya. So it make sure that the book they've chosen is within their linguistic proficiency level. So let's say here we have Amelia, we'll have different level with, let's say, Fauzia. Okay, so maybe Amelia will read a thin book, beberapa lembar saja, karena mungkin memang sedang berusaha berlatih untuk memahami bacaan home good. Miss Tia is the expert of home literacy. You can ask later to Miss Tia. Fauzia maybe has a good home literacy practice with parents, then maybe she is already familiar with English books. Jadi Miss Nurul, masing-masing mahasiswa atau siswa biarkan memulai memilih buku bacaan yang memang sesuai dengan kemampuan mereka. Some of my first semester university students, they start with picture books, buku anak-anak. Why? Because they are not really confident in reading, like, you know, novels or buku-buku yang sudah tidak bergambar. And that's okay. Why? Because what is important is actually how they try to enjoy the reading. So it's okay. So when you want to implement the literature circle, let them choose their own book. They can even, like your mahasiswa, maybe those picture books from their younger sisters or brothers, and that's okay. Yeah, so what is important actually is make connection with their personal life and how can they, you know, respond to each other. So I think that is a good start if you want to implement extensive reading, because extensive reading means reading for pleasure, not reading for pressure. Kalau sudah ada pressure, itu mereka nggak suka ya. Jadi harus pleasure dulu, gitu.
Okay, thank you for the enlightenment. Yeah, I will try to practice it next semester. Maybe this is the last question from Jihan Noviana. What do you think about the students who don't have motivation during learning at home? Yeah. About the
okay. So what do you think about students who do not have motivations in learning from home, right? Okay. What do I think? Well, I mean, like, I cannot blame the students when they do not have motivation in learning at home, because they have to stay at home. Again, like online or distance learning is not that simple. I mean, even when we actually prepare distance learning by design, right? It is still like causing some challenges. And I can imagine like what happened to us right now because of the pandemic. Everything is like a sudden decision to shift from in-person to online. So when the students do not have motivation in learning, I mean, like, we cannot really blame them 100%, because I believe that some students are still in their adjustment. So again, what we need to do is not blaming each other. Like students, you cannot just think like, oh, salah Bapak Ibu dosen karena nggak bisa entertaining us, right? Atau Bapak Ibu dosen, oh, salahnya mahasiswa, orang kalian tuh disuruh belajar kok, diberi kesempatan belajar kok kalian tidak memanfaatkan. Kenapa gampang mengeluh seperti itu? Yeah, so instead of blaming each other, I think what we need to do is working together. Students, please support the teachers and understand that they've tried their best. And also teachers, please support the students that they have tried their best. So I think what is important here is trust. If we have trust each other, I believe that we will support each other. And again, back to my presentation, I think when we have good and strong social connectedness between the students and the teachers, I think the low motivation can be overcome. Students, please communicate with teachers, and teachers, please also understand the students. So I think that's a solution that we can try. It's not easy, but I think it's possible. I hope I answered the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Yuseva. Okay, unfortunately, due to the time of limitation, yeah, I do apologize that we cannot answer all of the questions. Yeah, thank you, Miss Yuseva, for sharing your knowledge and experience into this discussion, and countless thanks for all participants for your active participation. And before we end this session, let's take a picture together. For all participants, please turn on your camera, please. Oke, minta tolong PJ Zoom untuk memberi instruksi tentang pengambilan gambarnya. Oke, this is the first slide. Oke, yes, silakan.
Buat semua partisipan dimohon untuk turn on kameranya. Oke, sudah siap? Sudah siap ya?
Siap.
Sudah siap dari tadi, udah senyum terus nih, Bu Nurul ya.
Oke, hidupin induksi saya. 1, 2, 3. Oke, lagi. 1, 2, 3. Oke. Sekali lagi ya, sekali lagi. One more. Yes, one more. Tapi boleh bergaya kok, boleh pakai gaya.
Bapak Hari, saya ngikut Papa Hari gayanya deh.
Yeah. Oke.
Saya gaya mati Pak Samsudin.
Siap, Bu Nurul.
Cara lain.
Bajunya sama.
One more. 1, 2, 3. Oke, done.
Saya dibagi sama bajunya sama Bu Nurul, dibagi bajunya sama dengan Bu Nurul tuh. Yang lain gak dibagi ya.
Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you once again. Thank you once again, Mbak Yuseva. And now I will return it to MC. Please, MC.
Okay. Thank you very much for Ms. Yuseva and Ma'am Nurul for the interesting discussion. Dear participants, for your information, this webinar is the opening of the 6th Students Research Expo 2021. We would like to invite you to join the events at 10 a.m. this morning. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was the end of our international webinar today, and hope to see you all the next time. Thank you for your participation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you Mbak Yuseva, sehat-sehat di sana.
Izin, mohon pamit Bu Nurul dan yang lainnya.
Terima kasih ya Miss Nurul ya.
Ya, terima
Sampai
kasih
ketemu
juga.
lagi.
Insya Allah ya, thank you.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Expo-nya lanjut ini atau keluar lagi ya?
Ada link baru lagi Pak untuk yang jam 10, jadi nanti akan dibagi lagi linknya.
Oke.